She was only a child, shivering in the storm, her tiny hands pressed against a locked door that would never open. The rain poured harder, but the voices inside stayed silent. Neighbors glanced, then turned away, as if her pain wasn't theirs to see. And just when it seemed she'd be swallowed by the night, headlights cut through the rain. A black car slowed, stopping right in front of her. Who was inside, and why did no one come before them? Before we go deeper, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because these are the stories that must be told, the stories too often ignored. Now, let's go back to where it all began.
For most people, childhood is meant to be a season of warmth and safety. For her, it was anything but. She lived in a quiet neighborhood where the houses looked picture perfect from the outside. Fresh paint, trimmed lawns, polite smiles. But behind one door, she learned what it meant to be unwanted. Her stepmother's words were colder than the rain that would soon drench her, reminding her she didn't belong, not in that home, not in that family. Most days, the little girl found refuge in simple things, drawing on scraps of paper, humming softly to herself, or watching other children laugh and play from her window. But even in those moments, she knew the stares that followed her, the whispers that carried through fences. She was different, and people made sure she never forgot it. That evening, the sky had darkened quickly. Storm clouds rolled in, the kind that send most children running inside to warmth and comfort. But for her, the storm wasn't outside. It was already waiting behind the locked door. By the time the rain began to fall, she found herself standing alone on the porch, the house sealed shut, her cries drowned out by thunder. And as the water streamed down her face, it wasn't clear what hurt more, the cold rain or the cruel silence of those who chose not to see her.
The storm raged on, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside her heart. She pressed her tiny fists against the locked door, hoping someone, anyone, would let her back in. But the house stayed silent. Curtains were drawn, lights flickered on inside, yet no hand reached for the knob. To them, she was invisible, or worse, she was unwanted. The rain soaked her dress until it clung to her skin, her hair plastered against her face. She called out, her voice breaking with every cry. But through the pounding of the rain, she could hear it, the muffled sound of laughter inside. Warmth and comfort were right there, just a few steps away, yet denied to her because she wasn't seen as their own. Neighbors peeked through windows. One man across the street shook his head, muttering something under his breath before pulling the blinds shut. Another woman, holding an umbrella, walked quickly past the porch, her eyes meeting the girl's for just a second before looking away. No one wanted to get involved. No one wanted to be responsible. After all, she was just a child they thought didn't belong. Time dragged on. The puddles grew deeper around her shoes. Her small body trembled, teeth chattering in rhythm with the thunder overhead. And still, no rescue came. The message was cruelly clear. She was on her own. Then, faintly at first, she heard it. The low hum of an engine cutting through the rain. Headlights glared down the street, blinding for a moment before dimming as the vehicle slowed. A black car rolled closer, its tires splashing water against the curb. The girl's breath caught. Was this help or danger? She didn't know. The car stopped directly in front of the house, engine still running. For a long second, nothing happened. Just the sound of rain pounding on metal and the child's heart pounding even louder inside her chest. Her eyes darted to the windows of the house. Surely now someone would come out. Surely the sight of a strange car stopping in front of their home would stir them to action. But still, silence. No footsteps, no door opening. No one cared enough to see. The car door opened. A tall shadow emerged, stepping into the downpour. The figure didn't rush, didn't speak, didn't wave, just stood there, rain soaking their shoulders, staring at the little girl as though they'd been expecting her all along. She froze, unsure whether to move closer or run. The street was empty, the neighbors had retreated, and the house behind her was locked tight. The storm swallowed her voice when she tried to whisper for help. And in that terrifying stillness, between the silence of those who rejected her and the mystery of the stranger who had come, her fate hung in the balance.
The figure stepped closer, each footfall splashing against the flooded pavement. The little girl's breath quickened, fear and hope colliding in her chest. She wanted to run, but where? Behind her was rejection. Before her was the unknown. The shadow loomed larger, until the glow of the streetlight revealed a face, an unfamiliar man, his expression unreadable. He crouched down to her level, his eyes scanning the bruises of cold on her skin, the way she shook from more than just the rain. But before a word could be spoken, the door of the house swung open. Her stepmother's silhouette appeared, sharp against the warm light inside. Her voice cut through the storm, laced with venom. She didn't ask if the child was okay. She didn't offer a blanket or an apology. Instead, she hissed words that carried across the porch, words dripping with the kind of hatred that strips innocence from a child. She doesn't belong here. The man's jaw tightened, the rain tracing lines down his face like silent tears. He turned back to the girl, then up to the neighbors' windows where faint outlines of figures stood frozen in their cowardice. Everyone saw. No one moved. No one dared. The little girl's chest ached, not just from the cold, but from the crushing weight of being unwanted, rejected by family, ignored by community, abandoned to the storm. At that moment, it wasn't just rain falling. It was dignity, childhood, safety, all slipping through her small hands. And then the man stepped forward, positioning himself between the child and the woman who had cast her out. His voice, low and steady, broke the silence of complicity. Not anymore. The storm raged louder, but the real storm, the one that had been allowed to brew in silence, was about to break.
The rain finally began to ease, but the damage was already done. The little girl's body trembled from the cold, yet when she felt the man's hand holding hers, there was warmth for the first time that night. He led her away from the porch, past the neighbors who had chosen silence, past the locked door that had denied her love. Every step they took together was a quiet rebellion against the cruelty she had endured. For her, this night would never be forgotten. The sting of rejection, the shame of being left in the storm, it would leave scars deeper than anyone could see. But so would the memory of someone who finally stood up, someone who refused to let her suffering go unseen. Sometimes a single act of courage is enough to shift the course of a life. Yet the truth is, her story is not just hers. It's the story of too many children, too many families, too many lives marked by the same cruel words, "You don't belong." And each time a door stays shut, each time a neighbor looks away, the injustice grows stronger. This was more than a storm on one forgotten night. It was a reflection of a greater storm, racism, neglect, and indifference that still pour down on innocent lives every day. The real question is not what happened to her, but what happens to us when we let this cycle continue. So I ask you, when you see injustice, will you be the one who turns away, or will you be the one who steps forward and says, "Not anymore"? Because the answer to that question will determine not just her future, but all of ours.